Hey, everybody. We're going to talk quarterbacks, and I'm actually making absolutely certain that this um, is on social media. I hope everybody is well today. The title is Caleb, Jayden, Drake, and other NFL 2024 draft quarterbacks played this weekend, but who's the best? And I've enlisted the assistance of my mom, who is a casual observer that is also knowledgeable. And I thought it'd be a lot of fun. I invited Bill Carroll, but he seems to be schedule challenged. We talked about it last night. So anyway, but things happen, as you know. So as I always say, the show must go on until, of course, it doesn't. So Bill and I'm going to start this with this mention. Bill and I talked about, they had this running battle about Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels, and in particular Drake Maye and Michael Penix Jr. And I felt that Michael Penix Jr. was much better than Drake Maye. My issue with Drake Maye was that he didn't play well in his second year of college, and in particular against North Carolina State. He had a couple of turnovers on the ground, one of which that was recovered. He had 2 interceptions that game. He had basically 4 near turnovers, 3 which actually did happen during that game. And that wasn't the only bad game he had. He had a great 2022 year. And I'm not saying you can't base the future of quarterback on 1 year and look at Joe Burrow. But in defense, he actually had more than that one incredible year. I'm not a fan of doing that. So at all. So it was, to me, from the start, evident that once he got to the NFL, Drake Maye is going to have some catching up to do. And I argue that's exactly what's happened, that Drake Maye, I said it was going to be a bust. There was this thing about, if you're a seasoned NFL person, if you're a seasoned NFL evaluator, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. You can say you're seasoned, you can say all of these things, but the bottom line is the eye is the eye. And the simple fact of the matter is that Drake Maye is just not that guy. Now, Bill would say, well, he had a good outing, but he was 2 of 3 passes. He threw 3 passes total. And of those passes, one was a flat pass and the other was a screen. The only incompletion was downfield. And notably, it came from that wind up that Drake Maye has, that where he goes right back and he does this. He tries to shorten it a little bit, but he still winds up. He still starts down here as opposed to up here. A number of great passers, Tom Brady, Jameis Winston, to name 2 of them, have very short releases. You have to ask, why is a short release so important? It's very simple. A short release is important because it means that the defensive back can't zero in on the fact that you're going to throw, as is the case with a windup, and then prepare himself or herself, if it's that case, to zero in on the nearest receiver and make sure the pass either doesn't get there or is picked off. And so that's why you want a quick release guy like Michael Penix. Michael Penix has a release so fast that it's talked about again and again and again. So what we're talking about right now is how all these gentlemen played out. What was how did they look? And let's start with Caleb Williams out of USC, who's now the savior for the Chicago Bears, as some would call him. and go from there. And so I would say regarding Mr. Williams that we really have to take a look, talk about the NFL, take a look at the game that he played and evaluate that game. We saw highlights, but we didn't see the complete statistics. And that's what I'm going to get right now. And by the way, the Cowboys play the Rams at 4:30 today. But
7 minutes.
7 minutes, my mom reminds me. 7 minutes. So thanks. So as we scroll down, we look for the Bears game of this. The Bears clobbered the Bills 33-3. That's a shellacking. Doesn't matter whether it's preseason or regular season. That, folks, is a shellacking. Statistically, he was 4 of 7 for 95 yards, which is not as good as, say, Jameis Winston's 4 of 5 passes for 30 yards, but he was 4 of 7 for 95 yards. But what he brought to the game was this intangible, this energy. He gets his players fired up. They match his energy. Everybody moves quickly. It's the pace that's impressive. The pace that he brings, Caleb Williams does to the Bears. So, no. Would you like to have seen a 7 of 7 for 120 yards and a touchdown? Sure, right? But he'll get there. 4 of 7 for 95 yards. Now, the other quarterback that played was none other than Jayden Daniels. What do you think of the Bears' new quarterback, Mom?
What?
What do you think of Caleb Williams, the Bears' new quarterback?
Oh, I think he's great.
Yep. Your Mom's a fan already. So
he's great, and he's going to be greater.
And she says he's going to be a fantastic contributor. So we went from there to
Bill Carroll.
Wow, Mr. Carroll. Hold on a second. Hey, Bill, you okay?
Yeah, I just have a hard out in about 45 minutes, but yeah, I can hop on real quick.
Okay, great. I already started. Yeah. Okay, cool. Did you get the link?
You texted it to me, or did you put it in my DM?
I did. I texted and then I put it into an email to you. I can DM it. I can DM it to you now too.
That's fine. If you texted it to me, then I have it in my text. I didn't know if you saved it.
I should have checked earlier. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was trying to go back and see for my text history, and I actually.
Oh.
Here we go.
Okay, you get because I was going to put in your DM too.
You can do that, but I'm looking at the text. If I don't see it, I'll check that too.
Just DM'd you through Twitter.
Okay. I will check that also. Okay, I'll see you in a second.
Cool. All right, see ya. All right. So, folks, we will be joined momentarily, as you heard, by Bill Carroll, our NFL draft expert. So we met through the late Bill Chackus, who unfortunately passed away last year. Did I tell you that, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bill was a great guy. We're going to miss him a lot, missed him a great deal. And he was great at introducing me to a number of people, a number of draftniks, a number of NFL draft experts, right? And that's how I met Bill Carroll. So
4:26. What's happening at 4:30?
4:30, the Rams play the Cowboys, I believe, on this station on NFL Network. And so, yeah, see, coming up next, right there. So I can take that. Coming up next. There you go. It's Jerry Jones out there we're not going to play the volume to that, folks, because that would be a copyright issue. But we can see it. Who's Jerry Jones talking animatedly to two of the Rams officials? Those are Rams execs. One of them, I believe, is Kevin Dimoff, and I'm not sure who the other one is. I know Kevin just by the way he stands, right? Because I talked with him. Kevin Demoff is the president of the Rams. The other person I didn't quite recognize is a tall guy. Anyway, and Jerry Jones is talking animatedly, and here comes Mr. Carroll. Lighten that up. As Mr. Carroll adjusts and turns on his screen or his phone, Michigan beat everybody is what it is. Michigan beat everybody is what it reads.
Let me see.
Okay.
There.
Michigan beat everybody. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Just fine. I'm checking on something. Hold on. Let me see something.
Okay. Yeah, you're in the dark.
Oh, that's the. I figured it out. It
Oh.
switched over. It switched over for some reason to wrong camera. So it was using the wrong camera.
Okay.
There we
He's
go.
a sharp dressed man in his tie and nice blue. Actually, you're wearing a cowboy blue.
Well, it's gray, but I guess blue gray, smoke gray, some people call it as well.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where I don't know my grays from my blues. Oh, that's bad, Mom. Mom says hi.
Well, hello, Mom.
Hi.
Yeah. So, Bill.
Yes, sir.
I already got off. We were talking about Caleb Williams, and even though he was 4 of 7 for 95 yards, which actually isn't bad if you think about it.
Well, it's
it was
good considering you're just working on things. I mean, I know some people keep track of pre-practice stats and preseason stats, and NFL teams look at them, but they don't take them seriously for a bunch of reasons because there's no offensive or defensive game plan, right? Yeah. Since you don't have an offensive game plan or a defensive game plan, you're literally treating it like a glorified practice. So it's nice if things work well, if it looks good, but you're literally just trying to figure out what works and how it works. You don't care that much about things like, stats.
It gets into the intangibles because when you see the highlights, the one thing that pops out to me is the energy the Bears have.
Yes.
I mean, they played faster than I've ever seen them play. And I have to believe that tempo, of course, is installed by the head coach, but it seems to be to the level of their new quarterback. What say you?
It's a combination. Yeah, he's a high energy guy. If you watched him back in high school, you saw the same. He's essentially just a slightly larger version of the same guy I first saw at 16 years of age. And shout out to my friend, Keith Goganis, who told me about him years ago, who coached against him when I think Keith was at Good Counsel at the time. Don't quote me on the high school, but I've been hearing his name for many years. And he's the only difference, like I say, is he's older, he's bigger, he's more experienced, but he's always been a dynamic personality and a dynamic athlete. He has all the things you look for in the modern quarterback, right?
Yep.
Mobile, smart, rips it. Now, are there fine points of the game that he still needs to work on? That's true of any young quarterback. There's definitely times when he gets sped up, right? You want to be, to quote the late, great John Wooden, always be fast but never hurry. And there's times when he gets sped up. Now, part of it because he's used to playing behind bad offensive lines.
Why do you think that is, Bill?
Well, I mean, so it goes back to what we talked about quarterbacks who play behind bad offensive lines continuously. If you continuously play behind a bad offensive line, your mental clock speeds up, right? And so even when there's no pass rush, you start to, right, because the clock is speeding up. I think if the offensive line proves to him he doesn't have to, because at USC, the offensive line was not good. It's funny because if you look at all the USC teams that were championship level teams, they always had 2 or 3 legitimate NFL offensive linemen. They had on the last team, that he was on, one guy who I thought had a good chance to at least contribute at the NFL level. May not be even a starter, but at least contribute. And so, I mean, Voorhees was before that, but he played behind some very unimpressive offensive lines.
One moment, Bill, just a little.
Sure. Well, I'll sort of, I guess, fill this time. So 2 things I'll continue to talk about. Everyone is running some version of one of 3 offenses, right? There's things that are based in the West Coast offense, which can be traced back to, the innovations that obviously people will Bill Walsh, but not enough attention is given to Homer Rice. Homer Rice was, I think, maybe the running backs coach on that team, but he was himself a former head coach at Rice, no relation, and had helped take Tommy Kramer from a guy who some people thought was a middling recruit. I don't think they had the star. If they had the star system, it wasn't reported what he was, but Texas had no interest in him. The big schools had no, bigger schools in Texas had no interest in Tommy Kramer. He ends up at Rice. And he ends up being, I think, by the time he's a senior, 8th in the Heisman Trophy voting, at least in part of the system that Homer Rice puts around him, which in some ways was a precursor of the modern spread. Taken some elements from the Don Meeks offense, the Bill Meeks offense, that he ran with Don Meredith at SMU, and elements of things that he developed himself, and even a little bit of Tiger Ellison stuff, and a bunch of other things all tossed in a pot. So you have that school of offense. You have, obviously we've talked ad nauseum about, things that come from the, sort of Al Davis, Sid Gilman, and then you have Earhart and things like that. And I think Lindy Infante, his name should be thrown out there too. You have that sort of group, and Coryell and that bunch. And then you have things that have come up from college, right? And a lot of NFL offenses use bits of all three, right?
Oh, and let's not forget, I'm glad you said that. The Bears have the Seahawks' old offensive coordinator.
Was exactly where I was going. Yes. So you said what you have is you have those things that, they've gleaned from all the things that developed under, I mean, people have given Urban Meyer a lot of credit for certain things, but he was not so much a innovator. He was a synthesizer, right? He took things from things that Coach Rodriguez had done. He took things from stuff that he liked in some of the other older systems, stuff he got from stuff he'd seen when they were running at Tulsa and other places where he'd been, or if not coached against, he'd gone to clinics and said, oh, I like that. I like that.
Yep. So Frankenstein offense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most offenses now are not purely.
Then who? I don't want to get off the track. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm going to try to get it back to Caleb in a second, but I'm just sort of talking about why they're building the system they're building. It's to build to his strength, to play to his strengths. So while they're going to, do things that are more complicated than what he did in his college career, they want to build from that. They want to use the things he already knows how to do, which is not, I think, a good idea to start where he already has mastered and then attach things onto it. So almost nobody's running a pure anything anymore, right? Nobody's running pure West Coast as Bill Walsh designed it, back when he was at Cincinnati, which is ironic because we call it West Coast, I guess West Coast of Ohio. And no one is running, pure Sid Gilman. And people forget Sid Gilman was, a split back guy. Like, he had a fullback back there.
Right.
So people forget that, Sid Gilman, though he was considered attacking down the field and things like that, he still believed in the running game. He had a fullback, a halfback.
Yeah.
Right.
He
pounded the ball by our standards. He pounded the ball at you quite a bit. Keith Lincoln had some big years.
Far down that spiral.
Yeah.
Pun intended, by the way.
Yeah.
I put out that Caleb had that spark, right? But then let's talk about Jayden Daniels, because arguably Jayden Daniels did what he was advertised to do.
I assume you mean Jayden Daniels. There is a Jaylen Daniels.
It's Jayden.
Who was also a quarterback at Kansas.
Right.
So it gets confusing. But yes, Jayden.
It's you know what it is? I keep in my mind misspelling his name. That's what it is. But at any rate, number 17 is he wore off field. Doug Williams' old number with the Washington Redskins.
Yep.
Was determined to look like the second coming of Doug Williams, plus because he threw a scintillating 43-yard game. What do you say about that?
Well, I mean, once again, all the things I said before about it being nothing is meaningless, but things mean less than people pretend they mean. So here's what once again, the defenses are just sitting in the same defense all day long. You'll never see that in a real game. So it's nothing like what you're going to see in just a few weeks when the scores count. But here's what you like. He trusts what he sees and he lets it go. You see that he is not afraid. You see that he trusts, as I said, his eyes. You can tell that remember there was all that furor over people didn't like the answers he gave and the whole little chalk talk thing. And once again, I know I love to analyze things as much as anybody, but you can definitely put too much stock in certain things in the pre-draft process.
That's true. Yeah.
And I remember all the hand wringing about the answers he gave and how whether it was the right answer or the wrong answer, or if he was.
Well, it really affected him. It affected him to the point that when I met him at the NFL draft, he had his head down a lot. And he was really, you could tell, gun shy. I mean, when he said something, it was short, it was direct, it was to the point. Not mean, but you can tell that he was very, very cautious of what he said to a media he viewed as basically not sympathetic to him. And I agree with him. Absolutely.
Well, here's what happens when you are considered one of the quarterbacks who's going to go towards the top part of the first round. People are going to take apart literally everything you say and look at it from every possible angle. Now, what he did is simply go through his thought process, and then he says, I'm going to try to score a touchdown. I mean, that's what you want mindset wise.
Yeah, that's
but
what you.
Whether it was the right answer or not in terms of what the read would be if this was happening, if that was happening. First of all, he's not in the system, right? He's not going through the keys the way you would teach it anyway. So a lot of this stuff is literally a tempest in a teapot, Zinni, right? I mean, your classic much ado about nothing kind of situation. He is a bright, experienced, athletic quarterback who has a strong enough arm to make all the throws you would probably ever need to make. He is going to make rookie mistakes like all rookie quarterbacks do, but they're going to win 2 or 3 more games this year, expressly because of Jayden Daniels. He is enough better than what they've had before a quarterback that it's worth 2 or 3.
He's very special. And he, in an offense that shines, now we have to get to Drake Maye.
Yep.
Versus Michael Penix. I was in love with Michael Penix's performance as region. Now the talk is quarterback controversy because, Mr. Kirk Cousins didn't play, but the song from everybody is, hey, look, Kirk Cousins has been near perfect in practice. Yep. Don't get too excited about what you see. Yep. Nothing's going to happen from there. But how about it? I mean, it was nice to see Michael has to work on one thing, and that's that crown in the center, because, as you know, the NFL playing fields, they go down on either side. So if you throw it, you can overthrow it, and that's what he did, right?
Yep. He's adjusting to some things, and he occasionally understrides. And I think early on, that was because, he's come off of some bad knee injuries, right? That was part of the story behind him, part of why he was in college so long, part of why a lot of teams were sort of gun shy about him.
Right.
Luckily, they found no long-term scarification, no nerve damage. So while you are still always nervous when someone's had their knees repaired surgically multiple times, he used to understride, I think, in part because he was afraid of people getting into his legs. You saw that with Brady when Brady first came back from the ACL as well, though he only had really that one injury season, and Penix sadly had 3 seasons in due to injury, one to an upper body and the other 2 lower body injuries. But the good news is you can tell this is a guy that studies the game hard. You can tell that he has all the stuff you need. But is Kirk Cousins going to be the guy? Of course. They did a lot to make that happen.
Is that people around here love Michael Penix. They meet him. They know a lot about him because of the geographic difference between Washington and here. But all you hear on the radio is how much people love the man, and how – and everybody, Kirk Cousins praises him. Everybody praises him. Arthur Blank, the people in the concessions, everybody. They're in love. It's Michael Penix land, literally.
Yep. And it should be. He's the future. And the old saying is, no one's ever more popular than the backup quarterback, right? So that's one of those great football truisms.
But it helps when the backup quarterback is not a jerk.
It does help. It does.
In a social media world, it really helps when the backup quarterback is really truly a nice person.
He's a smart guy. He's a nice guy. He's a good athlete. He's got all the things you're looking for. And someday it will be his job, but it will not, short of another, catastrophic injury, it will not be his job anytime in the immediate future.
Unlike Bo Nix.
Yes, right. Well, it was Bo Nix's job to lose, right?
Yeah, get this. I mean, they put a nickel dime game plan. You say they don't game plan. Sean Payton game plan for that young man.
Well, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's not a real Sean Payton game plan, but there was a little something.
Well, right. But still, 15 to 21 passes, 125 yards, and a touchdown. He led, 4 scoring drives, ended with a 102.3 passer rating. That was the man from Oregon, who I didn't think was going to be that good. I'll just say. All right.
Once again, as I keep pointing out, it's literally the first preseason game. Would you like to see the list of people that had great first preseason games who never became anything? I mean, it's a long list, Zeddy. So
it is. But you know what, though? I'll push back on you, my friend, in this way. I remember when Tom Walsh was first hired as the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, and it was August 16th, 2007, and we got sacked in that game 8 times, and I immediately said, fire this guy, because we're going to start off with a losing record over the first 6 games. I was right, and the Raiders did fire Tom Walsh as offensive coordinator toward, I believe, the 9th game of that season. But, it was well-deserved. He had this idea that it was this old kind of, retreat style of blocking that at that point it was evident the defensive ends were just becoming superhuman, and that couldn't work anymore. You have to actually take them on, old Steelers, Dan Markatovich style. You take them on the line of scrimmage and you fight them literally.
Right.
They weren't doing that. They were retreating, and so next thing you know, the pass pocket was retreating like, remember in Fantastic Voyage, the Voyager shrank that fast.
Yeah, there's 2 problems with that. One is that if you literally stumble at just a tiny bit, a gap opens up and someone shoots it. And 2, you're taking away your quarterback's ability to step up or move. So yeah, it's a terrible idea.
You're getting them killed.
I can't agree with you more. But what I'm pointing out is that I don't put too much stock in people who look terrible in the first preseason game or people looking great in the first preseason game. I remember Peyton Manning's first preseason game too, Zenny. It was not pretty. Like, no. I don't put too much stock in these things.
No, I was there when he played the Niners that year. It was awful. I was at Candlestick Park.
Yeah. So you're gonna see some truly ugly. Yeah, you're gonna see some truly ugly football because it's the first preseason game. You'll see some people look great, partially because some of the people they're playing against are not number ones. There are people they're checking out, and once again, as I keep hammering away, there's no real game plan. As you said, Sean Payton tweaked a few things, said, let's try this, let's try that. It still was, he didn't do, because they haven't fully installed everything. You can't put a real game plan in, right? They're still got weeks left of install. So yeah.
Hey, by the way, the Rams are about to score against the Cowboys. They're on the Cowboys' 10-yard line, and they almost did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun and exciting to talk about. Well, I have like 15 more minutes to my heart out, so I do want to touch on.
Yeah,
but we want to touch on Drake Maye. So. Now, once again, of all the teams we discussed, the worst of them is the Patriots, right? That is a bad football team. That is their first issue. No matter who you trot out there, that team's not going to look good. They have talent deficiencies at almost any position you can.
And you're talking about the Patriots, right?
Yeah. Oh yes, they have a very good chance to be the worst team in the NFL. So, there's not a position on their roster you can say, wow, they're great there. The part of their team I like the best is probably their secondary. They have one budding superstar back there, and another player who's solid. And then from there, you're looking at sort of like a patchwork at almost every other position. They're still trying to find a true number 1 wide receiver. Their tight ends, which is funny because as much as Belichick loved tight ends, he didn't seem to be able to find one towards the last part of his tenure. He kept collecting them, but none of them really became anything. The offensive line is kind of a mess. And the best parts of it have left, right? The players that were considered sort of top tier guys have moved on to other teams. They've got some real issues, I guess is all that was to say. But you saw things from Drake Maye that you thought you would see. He only played literally, a very short amount of time, but you could see he has a very live arm. You could see that he has movement skills. We'll see more snaps from him in the next time out, as was their plan. Their plan was for him to get that, 1 series in this game and to get probably maybe a whole quarter in the next one. That was the plan as they had rolled it out.
Now, what do you think the plan is going to be toward the regular season?
Well, I think he has a very good shot. They've said he has a good shot to win the job. So once again, the team is not good. So it's not like he's going to hurt their chances, even if he's going through the struggles of a rookie quarterback, because this is a team that just isn't built to do much. Think about this. If you're another NFL team, how many guys on the Patriots would you want on your team? Think about that. If you're an NFL team, right? That's about right. Exactly. So it's a short list, Eddie. It's a very short list. And there's 53 guys on the roster, and there's only 2 you'd really want as a GM of another NFL team. That tells you where the Patriots are. So I'm giving him a little bit of a mulligan, right? We'll see what happens if they can build a better roster around him. The good news, like I said, is they're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to be patient, right? You're not going anyplace. You're not going anyplace for a while. But they have a bright young coach. They've, turned the page on, an entire lifetime for some young people. There are people who don't remember the Patriots being coached by anybody else, who are old enough to vote, drive a car, have a job, So they have this is their first time hearing that team announced, and it's not William Steven Belichick trotting out there in his cutoff hoodie. So there's still some elements of what he put together because it's a guy off his coaching tree. So it's not like they've junked everything, but they're going to do some different things on both offense and defense, and they're going to frankly have to, right? When you don't have Tom Brady, you can't just say, hey, Tom, figure it out, which is what they sometimes did on offense. It makes you lazy as a game planner sometimes.
Well, let's give some credit to Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator. Hey, so I promised 30 minutes, so we're at 30-minute 41 mark or so.
Okay.
And,
well, I'll fire off one last thing.
Yeah.
Another rookie, though he's not going to be a starter this year, who flashed some really nice elements, was Mr. Spencer Rattler. Now, once again, he's not playing against the ones. In fact, he was playing against some of the threes, in fact, at times. But you saw some maturity. You saw some maturity in the way he approaches playing that wasn't there early in his career. You can tell that he's, like most of these guys, a project, a work in progress. But there's reason to believe he may one day develop into a starter. And if you can get a guy where you drafted him who one day develops into a starter, that's how you can build something around that, because you're getting this guy on a true bargain.
Let me ask you, what do you think? Because there are a number of people taking bets on this. The chances that he actually starts by, say, mid-season this year?
I'd say that's less than 40%, 30-something percent, 32.5%. You're going to put a number on it. I think that short of injury, it's highly unlikely. But I think that he certainly has a chance. This time next year, they might have a true quarterback controversy. This year, not so much.
All right, Bill, thanks a lot. Hey, everybody, thanks again. We're going to have another part of this. Hey, Bill, stick around. Folks.
We have about 10 more minutes. We got to do something else. So, yeah, I can give you about 8 of those 10.
Okay, cool. Stick around backstage. Folks, thank you very much for attending. And please like, subscribe, and, hey, donate, too. We have a super chat system. And very soon, I'm going to be building a NFL by Zenny62.com social media site.
Okay.
I already have one built about Oakland. Build this one. None of my friends are excited about, including one potential investor. That'll happen overnight. So stay tuned. All right. That ends this stream. Stick around, Bill.